Hello everyone! How's everybody enjoying the weekend? I am Cheryl from Tinker's Card Art and I thought I would pop in and paint some waves and some beach for you today. It's kind of a rainy Saturday here in Massachusetts and I was going to sit down and paint some beachy scenes. I have a little shop up in Maine, a group shop where I put my paintings and things, and I need to get some merchandise up there, and I thought what's better than a rainy day to sit in and paint. And I love to pop on and paint live with you guys because it's kind of like I'm painting with my friends. And I'm going to pull you up on my computer as well, so if you have any questions as we go along, I would love for you to pop in and just ask, say hello, let me know where you're watching from. That's always fun for me. This is a painting I've done before on a big gallery wrapped canvas, and I thought since I have some canvas left over here, I would try it on here. This canvas has something already sketched on it, but I'm going to go ahead and paint right over it. If you have a canvas and you've sketched or traced something on it, especially with the graphite transfer paper, a good way to remove that is just with a Mr. Clean sponge. I don't happen to have one handy. You probably have been following my adventures of moving. So we've just sold our house here in Massachusetts, and I'm going to spend the summer up in my camper in Maine. Well, I'm on the coast up there, so I do love Maine, and I love the ocean especially. And then in the fall, you'll see me travel back down to Florida. So beaches everywhere. And so anyways, I've sold my house, and this week it's kind of crazy here because I don't have all of my supplies. I have stuff split between two studios. So I didn't even have a Mr. Clean sponge, so I'm going to paint right over what I have traced on here. I'm just going to paint an ocean scene, a little bit of beach, some sky. You'll get some ideas how to make pretty quick and easy clouds and quick and easy waves. And I love this rectangular format. This is a pretty good size canvas. This is like a 12 by 24, I believe. I paint on the long rectangles a lot. So I'm going to jump in and I'm going to start painting, and I'll show you what I'm using as I go along. And you probably have seen me paint waves lots of times. But anyways, it's always good to have a little refresher. And I need merchandise for my little shop, so we're going to pop in and do this painting. For the canvas paintings, a lot of times I love these hog bristle brushes. They're stiffer, they're more for oil painting, but I use them for my acrylics. They're a filbert because I like that rounded edge. They're pretty beat up, but that gives me texture and it allows me to dig into the nooks and crannies of the canvas. When I get to any detailed bits, I will go ahead and use my synthetic brushes, but for this, we don't even need to. We're gonna use just some big brushes. If you don't have these, I don't want you to worry about that. I want you to jump in and paint with what you have. You could paint with one of your big 1.5 inch flats or something too. So I am going to show you what I use for colors. I'm just using my regular acrylics. Some of them are the craft acrylics. Some of them are, there's a few colors I really love with the Liquitex acrylics, especially phthalo green and phthalo blue, which I'm going to use to make the beautiful wave color. But we're going to start with sky. I do my skies pretty much the same, but I'll add different colors sometimes. This painting is going to be a little more pastel-y, I guess. I'm going to use some really light green blues in the water. I'm going to use a little bit of purple and pinkish in the skies. So let me just pop right in. And like I said, if you have questions, please just pop them in as I'm going along. And if I don't see them, I will certainly, after the painting is done, I will go ahead and answer those questions for you. So sometimes I miss them as I'm scrolling. So I'm going to just get one of my bigger synthetic hog bristle brushes here. I'm going to start at the top and work down, mostly so I don't put my hand in my painting. Hey Pat, thanks for watching. I know you've been painting with me and doing some beach things too, so we're going to do a big beach painting today. And I'm going to, I know it's a little bit of an odd angle, but with these big canvases, it's kind of hard to fit everything in the screen, but you're going to get the gist of it. So when I paint my skies, I usually start and I mix as I go on my palette. I like to do it that way so that the painting is not all the perfect shade. I'm getting a little darker blue, a little lighter blue. I'm going to do some pastels, some peachy colors and whatnot in the sky. But I always start the same way. I just dip into a little tiny bit of blue and I go right into my white, and I start with my whatever blue comes out. And because I can go ahead and adjust this as I go. And if you wanted to, if it's a gallery wrapped canvas, hi Nancy, you can go ahead and just start on the edge, and that'll give you an idea of the shade. And I paint rather fast, and that's so that I can mix my colors wet and have it blend. So if you're on the side here and you want to lighten or on the front of the canvas, lighten or dark, you can sometimes just dip right into, I know it's hard to see my palette. I like to have you see my palette. Dip right into the white and lighten it up. Right into the blue and darken it up if you like. And can you see, because that's all wet and wet, it just sort of blends all by itself. So let me try to keep my palette up here for a moment so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to just go, I might start up in this corner. I sort of start in one end a lot of times and work my way across. And like I said, I work rather fast so that I can blend as I go. And I'm picking up sometimes just the light color, the white. Sometimes I'll go right in there with blue if I want a little darker spot. And I'm blending with the brush as I go, but sometimes there's too much paint on my brush to really blend, so that's why I'll keep a paper towel handy and I'll wipe it off, use that dry brush to blend my colors. And I love the way that you can see the brush strokes. I don't want to blend them too much. Now you might like that look of a very soft blended sky. In that case, just keep drying your brush off on your paper towel with your nice dry brush, really finesse and soften it. I sort of like to have those brush strokes showing. Sometimes I'll even go in with a palette knife afterwards and really get some bright bits. I don't have a palette knife here because, like I said, my studios are crazy, but we're going to do it with the brush. And if you want to put a cloud in, you don't want it to look like, you know, you paint the blue sky and then you pop your cloud in and it looks like it pasted on top. What I do is, say I want to start a little cloud coming here, take just white. It's a dirty brush, it's a dirty blue brush, so it's not going to come out solid white, but I get a little bit of a lighter, very subtle, very light area where that cloud will build up later. So I'm just going to kind of go right around, right across. I'm only going halfway down. In this sky, I want to get it a little purpley and pinky towards the bottom. A lot of times I'll do it just blue the whole way, but like I said, I'm going to have some pastels in this painting. So I'm going to just work my way across the top half of the sky with any little blue I grab. Sometimes it's just a little bit. And then I go sometimes into the white. Like I say, I'm going to put a little bit of clouds across here. I'm putting it really messily. I'm not really paying close attention to what it looks like. This is really fun way to paint. Just get that paint right on that canvas. Go along. What's the worst that can happen? It's acrylic. We can paint right over it. Hey, Lisa, thanks for watching. Thanks for popping in. So I'm just going to go really quick right across. Nice bold brush strokes, not really paying attention too much, because then sometimes when I step back, it's like, oh wow, I had created this cool little effect without even trying. And again, like I said, if you don't care for it, you can always paint over it. And I'm going to get a little darker blue maybe to the edge. Sometimes across the tippy top and the edges, I like a little darker blue. And let's see, can you see that bit I'm painting on the canvas? Let me know if you can. I know it's hard to see this whole canvas. Let's see, there you go. I'll pull it this way. There. See how I got a little darker on this edge? I am just going to get a little darker there. I want to blend it a little more than that's blended, so I'll just dry off my brush. Sometimes I'll just pat it on the paper towel and sort of just blend it. And I know acrylics dry fast, but you have plenty of time to do this work. Sometimes I'm waiting for it to dry. So I've got the tippy top done with some blue and some white, a little bit of subtle areas where I might put a cloud. And now I'm going to just really dry that brush off. I want to pick up some white paint. I'm not going to wash it off. I don't want to get a lot of water involved in the brush, but I'm just going to wipe it off. And I'm going to go into my white. And sometimes this might be a good place to use even your heavy body acrylics. I know I have some down here. I didn't really plan on grabbing them, but if I have white, I may. And I may not, because I did my studios. Oh, I do. So sometimes for the texture, it's nice to have a little bit of a heavier body. This is just a Liquitex, and it's just a heavy body acrylic. And I think I might want that to pop in some of those clouds so they have some texture. You can also use a medium to mix into your paint and make it a little heavier, but you can see that's really much more like paste. And I might just go in now and pop in some heavier clouds here and there. Just kind of dabbing them in. And I want to, like I said, get a little lighter as I go down, so I think I'm going to use just the light on my brush to blend into the sky I've already painted. And then I'm going to kind of ease into like a little bit of a purple, a little pink. We're going to put a little bit vague, a little bit of a sun behind the clouds, just a little gold going through. It's really a pretty painting. I've done it before. I've got a little reference photo up on my iPad here. And if I need to get really even a little brighter, I will just go ahead now and take maybe a clean brush, and just start with a little bit lighter. So I want to get a little bit of a purple. And I always like to tell you guys, you can certainly mix all your colors. I do have some purples that I like that I have in the tubes or the bottles, but really, you really only need your primaries to start. You don't really need all the colors. You can start very simply. If you're looking to get started painting or get back into painting, don't let having all the things stand in your way. Jump in and use what you have, and you can always add a few things. I show everybody what I'm using. I try to simplify it. I have some lists of what is the basic that you need just to get started. So I'm taking a little bit of a purpley pink here. It's even a little bright there. I want to have it really, really light. And actually, I go back up to this end because I like to kind of blend from that side down. And I'm going to get a little pink in it here and there. You see how fast I'm going because I want to get it on there before everything dries. And I may just go back and forth with a couple of brushes. I do want a little bit of the dirty brush with the blue. I might just go back in and sort of finesse that all together. I don't want to make it a straight line. I have the pink kind of in a line that I've added it on, but I'll just go now and I'll sort of bring that light blue and that blue sky down into it. Sometimes I want it to be a little bluer, sometimes a little pinker, sometimes just the white. So I'm just going down now. I'm picking up the paint. Because this is a heavier hog bristle brush, you can hear it almost like how it's mixing. Hey, Laurie, thank you. I'm so glad to see you here. It's kind of rainy up in Mass today. It's been rainy for 3 weeks, so hopefully it'll change a little bit. So I'm just kind of mixing all these colors. And the trick is to keep drying that brush off, because once you pick up some of it, you don't want to keep spreading that around. If I'm spreading all that blue from the top down onto where I put my pinky purple, it would just turn blue. So I just blend a little bit, wipe a little bit, and now I'm going to go back into the colors that I'm using for my sky. I might go back with a little bit of a blue, very light, into my white. What I want to really do is get all of this area covered, the white of the canvas covered with color, as wet as I can, so that I can go back and finesse it now, build up clouds. I'll build up the white on my clouds a little bit at a time as the paint dries, and then it's a very subtle cloud. It doesn't look like we just pasted it on. You'll see, we'll make it a little subtle, then we'll add a little white maybe closer to the top of the cloud, and it just looks more natural that way. I've got a line across here for my horizon, for my water. We'll start, my ocean will start here. I'm almost to the point where I really want to be, is just paint on that whole sky, and it might not just be perfectly blended or done yet, but can see it's already starting to look like something. It's already starting to look like the sky. And I'm just trying to get this so you can, I don't want to keep it so that you can see it in the camera. So I'm just going to dry my brush off. I'm going to use this brush. I'm going to go back in some places because it's very light. And now I just kind of step back and I look at it and I said, oh, I want a little bit of darker blue in places. So I'm putting that in. And I find myself picking up a lot of the blue, wipe it off, use the dry brush to blend. It's sort of very simple technique. I'm going to pick up some of that little bit of purpley pink because I want to spread that around. I want some down here and some maybe over here. This is more of a purple than the pink, so we get some shades of light purple, some shades of, I got this little bit of pink. I love this color lately. It's melon. It's Deco Art Melon. It's kind of like a salmon-y color. I might throw some of that in. The trick is to, again, wipe off your brush before you pick up another light color. Sometimes, like I say, I have the two brushes going, one with a darker color, one with a lighter. Let's get a little bit of that melon color. You'll see how cool that is. Just put it in a few places. And I'm even going to throw in a little bit, I'm going to wipe that off because it's looking a little gray to me there. And I'm even going to get a little bit of a yellow. Now, I don't want to go with a bright yellow like that in my sky. I really want it light, so I'll just make it light with some white. Just a little bit of a glow that we're going to have in there. I know the sun's going to be over here, say, so I might put little glows of that in here, here and there. And some things if you don't like I'm looking now, and when I put on that melon color, it turned a little grayish. That's all right, though. I'm just going to rinse off my brush. When I wash my brush, I rinse it, and I'm in the middle of this sort of thing. Just make sure you absorb all the water out of the brush. That's all. I don't want to go on here and have it take the paint right off. And this is a big canvas, so it's a little hard for me to paint this close. Usually I would like to have it on an easel and be stepping back and forward. So remember, when you're painting, get away from that painting quite often because it's hard to judge right here what's going on. So I'll probably hold that up and step back sometimes. And actually, I think it's almost better if I stand up a little bit here because I can get a better idea of what's going on. So I'm just taking white now, just white on my brush. It's turning a little light blue, which is good. I don't want it stark white. And I'll kind of go in, okay, I'm going to have some clouds over here, so I'm going to start putting them in. I'm using just little crisscrossy strokes almost. I kind of like to start them with like a little bump in the top, work out a little bit. I always want my clouds on the very bottoms to be faded out. So I'll go heavier on the top. So this is the top of my cloud. I'll go a little heavier. It's not super crisp line, which is good, but then I dry it off, and under here, if it's at all aligned, I just have that fade into the background. If there's something I don't like, and that's where this little melon color was, it's not bad. Once I start adding some light blue back, again, you can fix anything. If you were painting along like this and you really didn't like something, you could paint it completely over. There's nothing to say that you can't go back and adjust and fix things. Dragged some of that dark blue in, but it's okay. I just like the way it looks. And so I very lightly have some places where I'm going to put some clouds. And I'm going to build them up a little more as we go. So here's what I have kind of. Let's see what it looks like, because if I look at it in the camera, it's just like stepping back for me. So we've got some clouds there. I've got some blue back in the bottom. Looking at the camera, it looks like a lot of white here. So I'm just going to go back into my blue. I just don't want a big strip of white there. I might go back in and break it up a little bit. I go, look at a little blue in here. Kind of break that cloud up. I don't want them all like a row of clouds there. Let's just do that. Let's break that up a little bit. Light strokes, paint's wet, not super wet, it's drying a bit, which is nice because then we can still move it around. How fun is this? This is the part you just have fun. You say, oh, I'm just throwing the paint around on the canvas and we'll just see what comes out. We don't know, but we'll just see. Get a little blue back here. I just go into the colors I'm using, lighten and darken, just for fun. And now I think I'll get that little bit of yellow I want to get for the sun that's kind of peeking out behind one of those clouds. So I am going to wash my other brush that had the purple on it. Hey Linda, thank you for watching. Thank you guys for popping in. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. If you would, I would love to know where you're watching from. That's always fun when I have my live segments, just to see people are close by, people are far away. I'm painting from Massachusetts today. You'll see me in Maine a lot though this summer. So I'm just mixing, again, my yellow's very bright. I'm just toning it down with some white. And I'm going to get a little bit of yellow here. So I put it on pretty lightly. Can you see that? Australia, Tracy, cool. I love seeing people from all over the world. We have people from all over watching, and I love that. So I've just started with a little of the yellow, and I might just kind of bring it out a little bit here and there so it's kind of radiating out. Sometimes I will take my clouds at the end and get a little bit of gold, yellowish, kind of peeking through. A lot of times I'll wait till the paint is a little drier and a little brighter, but I want a little bit of yellow showing through here. Now that's a perfect place to leave it. I know it looks a little messy, but I'm going to come back and finesse some clouds. But for now, I think that is perfect. And I'm going to just jump right into the water now. And that's pretty easy. And what I do, let's see, you can see the canvas there. I really do love these two phthalos, green and blue. I use the Liquitex. I just cannot find the equivalent in some of the craft paints to give me that deep, deep blue-green of the water. And especially if you put some white with it, you get a nice turquoise color. You can get some really nice teals, just mixing those two colors. I use those two colors in the primary yellow an awful lot, and the Payne's Gray. Those are about the colors I use in the Liquitex. So I'm going to just simply take those two colors. Wait till you see the cool ocean color you get with that phthalo green, phthalo blue. I just mix it. Again, like the cloud, sky. I don't really know what it's going to look like yet, but I will start putting it in, and then I adjust on the fly. Look at that great tealy color. It's fabulous. Now, with the horizon line like that, you want it fairly straight. I did measure, I drew a line, and I'm going to try to carefully get that line in before I start doing all my loose brush strokes, because if that line is off, it does look a little wonky. And I've many times painted my little line from my horizon and then later looked at it and thought, oh, it's a little off. It's so easy on acrylics. You just go back, measure it, get a little brush, and just straighten that horizon line out. So I'm going to get it as straight as I can, but I might have to come back and straighten it out too. So I'm gonna just go along. I'm using my big hog bristle brush, but I'm just gonna using it still for a fine line. And I'll tell you a little trick for drawing and painting straight lines. And it sounds crazy, but it actually works. I learned this back in school. So I'm taking my color, or if it's just drawing, it would be your pencil. And I'm just putting that up against my line, but I'm looking ahead at where my brush is going. So I'm painting here, but I'm looking at the line over here. And honestly, it really does help you paint a straighter line. So I'm just gonna kind of go right along, and I'm just looking a little bit ahead of where my brush is sitting, and I'm going right along that way. And if I'm drawing a straight line, of course, if I wasn't using a ruler or something, I would do the same thing, but you sort of get a pretty straight line. I have a little Irish cottage scene underneath, but we're painting right over it. And as I dip into the color, I don't mix a big batch of ocean water color. I just dip back and forth into the phthalo blue and the phthalo green. And I'm just getting this little boundary here so I get that straight line. Now, most of the times I will use those crisscrossy strokes when I'm putting landscapes in. Hey Linda, where are you? Is it raining over in New York too, I wonder? We've had such rainy weather. But when I paint water, I do go back and forth because I like the way the streaks of the brush just lend itself to look like water. But when I'm painting pretty much anything else, I use little cross-hatchy strokes. So now, sometimes again, like the clouds, I'll take just straight blue, and I could get a little bit of blue in there. I could take white now anytime I want, just to lighten it up. Very dark in the back of the horizon where the water is. I like it to have it dark, but then as I get closer, I just add white to my brush, and I just lighten that up, leaving some of it showing a little more so that it kind of looks like white caps. You don't want to build up big waves way back here. You never would see them, but we're going to get more waves as we get towards the shore. But I do want that pretty dark in the back, and it's gotten a little lighter. I might go with a little darker blue, and I may just come back later, and I think I'll come back later and just deepen it up, because I want it fairly dark back there. As I get a little towards where the waves, we're gonna say we'll end like here. Say this is gonna be, our waves will come to about here. As I like to get some like lime greens in here sometimes. You see the ocean and you see those waves breaking in underneath when the sunlight comes through. You see it's like lime green. I put a little of that in. But when I get down here, I want to get really light. I want to start just from here down, maybe just using white in my brush. It's a dirty brush, so it won't be bright white. But I want to get it a very light when it comes towards the sand, so I can get a nice blend of the sand and the ocean. So we'll keep that in mind, that when we get down to about here, we're going to start putting in more white. But I do like to get that kind of a lime green. And if I go with this phthalo green and some of my primary yellow, I get some really nice light lime greens, a little bit of white maybe. And I want to get just here and there some of that. Now I'm just kind of putting it on quick and hoping that it's thick enough that it will stay wet so I can blend. Because now I'm just going to hop back over to the color I'm using for the water. Maybe a little white in there. Now I'm going to be able to blend that lime green here and there. And I'll probably add a little more white even as I go. See, I'm going just with strokes that are back and forth. I'm not paying too close attention to the color. I'm using the green and the blue with a little white here and there. And I just want to get it down around this green that I put in, so that I can sort of blend that all together. I may even put a little more of that green here and there. I'm basically just popping into most of the colors on my palette, which really helps making a cohesive painting. I pick out kind of a color palette to begin with, a number of colors, 4 or 5 colors, and try to repeat them and try to use them in different areas of my canvas. So I'm getting down where I want to start using a little white, but let's just get some of this ocean color in too up here. So I'll just back and forth. And I know it's not nearly done yet, but it's already, you know, reading as water, reading as an ocean. I love taking just the white and streaking it through sometimes. And I might just dry that paint. Had a lot of paint on that brush now. We'll just dry that off. Grab some white. I might just get the colors wet way back here, so I'm going to go right back there, blend it down. Again, I want my whole little area I'm working on, the white of the canvas covered, and then I can really add some shading and highlights and some other colors in there. The paint is not drying very fast, probably because it's kind of a wet day, so it's kind of nice to have this time to blend. When I'm outside and I'm plein air painting and I use my acrylics, sometimes it tends to dried really fast on me, but you can always use a little slow drying medium, which is what I'll do sometimes. Or when I'm outside, I'll use those Stay Wet palettes. I don't know how many people might use those, but that is kind of cool. It keeps your acrylic from drying fast. It's a wet sponge with a piece of paper that you put on there as well. And it really does help with the drying time of your acrylics. Okay, I'm gonna dry off my brush. Like I said, I wanna get lighter. I wanna get lighter down here when that water comes just up on the sand and it's kind of see-through, so it's mostly the sand color that you see. So let's just go into white, and actually I'll get a little more clean white. And I might get a little bit more of that heavy body white for my heavier waves, because I'm gonna put some waves that are sort of breaking closer to the shore. But dirty brush, just taking the white now, gonna go down here, and it's gonna almost be like a little buffer between the sand and that dark blue. I'm just gonna take the white, start a little bit underneath what color I have there and work up into it. Otherwise, you're going to bring a lot of that color down. I'd rather start with it a little lighter down here and work up. I am going to kind of go over where I just drew this line to show you where I was going to end. I wouldn't ordinarily do that in that teal color, but we'll cover that up a little bit and then just work right up into the water. And now we're going to come back and really have some fun with dabbing in clouds, dabbing in waves here. I'm going to deepen up a little bit of that sun in a tiny spot and put a little reflection in the water of that too. But basically, the white of the canvas is covered now. And we've gotten a little greener towards the shore. It's very blue in the back. I don't want it to look like it's like two separate areas. So I'm just going to now take a little of that green and maybe put a little bit of it just here and there in the very back. And I can also take a little of the darker ocean color and then bring it down. And doesn't that look a little more cohesive then? And it's really fun to just not think about it too much, because if you analyze it and think about it too much, it's just going to get too tedious, and you just want to have fun. I want to look at paintings and see the brushstrokes and the joy that people had when they were creating. That's what I love. So leave the water now for a little bit. Let's get a base coat of the sand down here, and I'm going to show you how I can bring the sand into the water, bring the water down over it, and then we will go and finesse a lot of other little things. Now, I use, I use this buttermilk, which I like for sand color, and then a little deep golden ochre, and that sort of starts me with a sand color. I don't want it to be too bright. I want it to be toned down a little bit, so I'll maybe take a little Payne's gray in there or some blue, just to kind of subtly quiet that bright yellowy sand down. I may even, let's see, is this brush it's kind of got some blue on it still, but I don't mind. I think I want to have it, like I say, toned down a bit, so I think I'll go right into that buttermilk color. I'm going to wipe it off now because I'm really getting a lot of teal in there, but I don't mind. And I'm going to sort of start brushing that in, and I'm just going to wipe off what I can of the teal. If I have to wash my brush, I will, but I mostly just want to get a little darker sand area and then build it up brighter. I do paint dark to light a lot, and if you've seen... Yes, Cecile, that is correct, and I'm trying, even for me it's hard. I have to try to stop thinking about every little thing you see, because for instance, if I'm out plein air painting, your eye can see everything, because you're looking and you see everything. I look here, that flower's in perfect detail, and I look here, it's perfectly crisp. But when you are painting, I try to look at my focal point, and that's a little crisper, but the peripheral vision now is blurred, and that's the way I try to paint, so I'm not getting detail across the board always. Now, there's different times when I do that, because I want, like, the center of interest of a painting I just did were all flowers in a garden. They were pretty bright and crisp, but then it was an overcast day, so it was very soft and blended and moody for the rest of the painting. But if you're going to try to paint like a photograph, you're going to make yourself crazy. And I know we all think, and I thought this way too, but I'm way over it, is like, it's not a compliment if you say, oh my God, your painting is so wonderful, it looks like a photograph. Not what I'm trying to achieve anymore. I want to have fun with it, mix it up a little, not be totally abstract, but a lot of brush strokes and colors that might not be there. Something that's just pleasing for me to look at, whether it looks like my reference or not. I use a lot of artistic license sometimes. So you can see I'm putting in the sand color basically, but I like the way my dirty brush brought in kind of that blue like I said, sometimes I might want a little Payne's gray. I love Payne's gray. I don't use black very often. If I do, it's black with some blue mixed. But I do want to get it just a little bit darker in places. So I'm just going to throw that in here and there. Again, I'm going so fast, you're obviously not thinking about where it goes. I just am almost making a pattern. I want some dark, some light. And we'll go over this once it starts to set up and dry a little bit. Sometimes it's fun for the texture of sand on the bottom of my painting too. I might take the old toothbrush and scatter it. Hey Linda, I think I did this painting in the membership actually, but I will take a look. And if not, I definitely will put the video in. I'm trying to do, when I do the lives, put them into the membership for you guys too, because sometimes, you know, everybody doesn't see everything. And speaking of my membership, that's why I'm going to be painting quite a bit with you this week. I mean, I paint a lot. I have a lot of YouTube videos. I go on live once a week. But my membership, my art membership is open this week only till next weekend. Tinker's Cardist art membership. We have a lot of fun. I have some of the members watching here. I paint with you guys live 2 times a month and get 2 recordings. So it's really a lot of fun. And if you're an absolute beginner, I go baby step by baby step, not something that you have to worry about getting lost. I start very simply with what you need for supplies, the simplest supplies, what you need for primary colors. We can mix from there. I want you to get started painting, not, like I say, have to spend a lot of money and whatnot. So when I am here, I've got my sand color kind of up to my water. My water color got a little lighter here, and I want to sort of blend them a little bit. So sometimes just the dry brush to soften. And as this water comes up on the sand, you will have little shadows and things under it. So I'm just going to first get some of the water coming up, and I'm going to just take some white. I don't mind that it has a little of the ocean color. And I'm just going to kind of get an idea of this coming up onto the sand. And you know, it gets to be a very light blue sometimes when that little water is coming up because you're seeing the sand through it. So I got a little light blue I'm working with here. I'm just wet and wet still. This is still, actually my sky is still a little wet in places. So I am just getting a little light blue here. And then I'm even going to go and do a little just white. It will start looking like those little light, shallow bits of water that come up on the ocean. On the sand. Hi, Deborah. Thank you for watching. Good to see people here. I'm trying to keep an eye up, but lots of times I'm busy with the painting, but I'll go back later. So now it's a little brighter white down here. It's going to be coming up on the sand a little more. I sometimes get little brush hairs and whatnot, so I just pick those out as I go. And it's very wet and wet. It's almost like painting with oils. I was always an oil painter to start, so I like to force my acrylics to work like that, to give me some time to blend and dry and finesse things. So it's coming along. It's just needs some work, but look at how long have we been painting? Not long at all. And that's another thing I like to stress. You don't need a lot of time. Don't say, well, I just don't have time. I'd love to paint, but I don't have time. Take 20 minutes, 25 minutes a day. Just play around, do a few little things, get started, organize your studio. It really makes a difference. It's easier to get started. Sometimes we all get stuck. I do the same thing. I just don't know what to do. So all I do is simply start organizing my paints and neatening up my studio, getting some ideas, look for references, and then next thing you know, you kind of get anxious to jump in to do it. Okay, I want to get a little bit of shadow down here, you know, where the water's coming up, so I think I'll just use the same brush that has the sand color on it. I might take a little bit of my Payne's Gray, not a lot, I don't want it dark, and maybe some blue. Kind of going to need to get a little more blue out, I think. I've used a lot of it already for the sky and waves. And I think I put up in the description a link about the information about the membership. So if it's something that you're thinking of, I'm not a big salesperson. I can't be constantly, it just makes me crazy, but I want you to know it's opening and know it's very affordable and no commitment, and it might be a good way to jump in and get started, and the information's there, and I'm always around to answer any questions you might have. So I'll speak about it when I can, but I sometimes rather just paint. But we have so much fun. It's a great community, and it's just nice to connect with others, especially if you are at home. We paint, you know, online, so it's kind of cool to have a little community of creative friends, somebody to bounce ideas off of and show paintings. And, you know, I'm always there to answer any questions about anything you might be stuck on. And also, I love to get suggestions. I've been going for 2 years now, so there's 2 years worth of paintings in the library. When you join, you have access to all of that stuff. It's not to make you try to keep up and paint all those things. It's because maybe you like to paint animals. There's bunches of animals, and you just find the animals. If you want to just paint seascapes, there's bunches of those. Still lifes, whatever your jam is, you could find paintings to do. And I'm always open to suggestions of things you might want to paint. Let me know, and I'll design some paintings. And I also show you a little about designing your own paintings too, and from your own photos, and reference, letting you know where there's reference photos that you can use without any royalty issues and whatnot. All right, so I think I'm going to wash my brush good, get a nice clean brush, because I think I can go back up into the sky and get a little more of that yellow, a little more clouds. As this dries, I'll get my little highlight for the sun there, and then we'll start with some really fun waves, and then a little more texture in the sand, I think. But I'm just going to rinse off my brush and dry it really well, and then go back into the sky a little bit. So I do want to make sure I have some clean white, because I don't want to accidentally have the blue in my blue-green in my sky. Although I have to say, I have painted skies with a greenish tone, and that is kind of cool. It makes for a very moody, almost storm-like sky coming when you have just a tad of green in there. And this is my little sun, and I want to just brighten up a tiny bit, and I'm going to actually dry brush a little white over it too. I don't want it to look like it's a perfect little you know, round sun or anything. So I'm just getting a tiny bit brighter, and in the middle there, just a little brighter. And like I said, sometimes under the clouds, I might want a little, this is a little heavy, but I'm going to go with my white of my clouds over, and I'm just scattering it in a few little places. I don't want to get too much. And I can't really go into, I got to let that dry before I put my little highlight. So I'm going to rinse off and get my white now for my clouds. And like I said, on my clouds, I like to, on the tippy tops, get them a little heavier and then soften the bottoms. So I'm just got another, I just cleaned my brush off, wiped off the water. Even if I go into the heavier, heavy body, it's kind of nice for the texture of the clouds. And like I said, if I had my palette knife, I might just go in there with that now on top and brighten and just give that a little texture. But I do like the heaviness of that, the body of that paint. Let me just lift this so you can kind of see. And so I'm going to go, so say I have a little cloud. Let's see, closer is better. So this little subtle white area, I want to make it more into a little bit of a shape. So I've just got some heavy white on kind of almost a half of my brush. Very light. I'd rather have you go with the tiniest bit of white, light stroke, and see how it looks, than go right with a big heavy bit of paint. I'd rather have you start a little lighter and then build it up. And after a while, you get the feeling of how much can I add, and have it not overwhelm. So I've got a little bit on there. I'm going to go just to the tippy tops. I'm just going to kind of make some little curvy strokes. I know it's kind of a formula, but it looks nice with a little curvy stroke. And then I sort of bring it down. And see, I'm just bringing it down, fading it out. I'm not making a round oval cloud shape, and so it doesn't look pasted. So it's very light. And I'm going to keep drying off my brush, because this part here is what I want to fade. I want that to fade into the background. I want these edges to sort of fade out, and I've got a little hair there in my brush. So you can see I put it on kind of rough too. You can even see the top of that cloud is a little bit rough, and that's how it might be in nature. So I can even just, you know, have a little texture there. And I just sort of, again, I went a little slow there to show you how I do those strokes, but I wouldn't want to go that carefully and slow. I would more like, okay, just kind of put some little dabs and strokes and put them in. And I can see, because it's a light blue under here, I can see the heavier blue just standing out on top of it. And if we started with this heavy of a white, we'd have no place to build up to. So that's why I like to start, I don't want to say grayer, but just duller. And you can build it up and build it up. I might come back a few times and get a few little wisps of white. So if it's too pink in a place, I'm going to go over with a little white. Pink is still showing. Can you see just those couple of little clouds? See, it's just, I dabbed just heavy white on top, and it's working. And then sometimes if it's just barely any white left on my brush, I can sort of just scumble a little bit, so it's just a little lighter back there, but not even a cloud shape. I don't really want to have all of these yellow areas as bright, so I might leave some bright and then just maybe put a little bit of white over some. I might want to just go down here and make a little brighter clouds, like a little long. But I tend to make these little bumpy shapes and then kind of soften them out on each side. Over here where the little bit of the sun is showing, I might go back with some white here and there. It's kind of almost behind the cloud showing. Over here I want to get a little more white where I have that bit of yellow. Can you see? Oh, hang on. There. I'm just going to go into that little bit. And even though the yellow's there and I'm going over with the white, it still shows, just a little subtler. And like I said, whatever you want, you could just, I could go crazy and make so many clouds we don't even have any more sky left. But this was a pretty cloudy sky with a lot of strokes. So I'm going even with a light blue now instead of the white, and I could just put a little light blue here. And again, it's just another shade. Down here I could do that. I really liked some more pink. I think I had light blue here. It's kind of a little, I didn't really like, I wouldn't go with the melon again. It didn't really do what I wanted it to. I like the little pinky purples better. And I might get really light with that. And I could put some little bits of that down on the horizon line. I put it on with my brush, you saw me, but I think it's just too harsh. Oops. So I'm just going to soften it with the brush a little bit. So I'm just going back in here and there with a little more of that pink. And from a distance, it's really, I mean, that's probably enough. But I probably will, because I'm me and I like to just add that last little bit. I probably would just dab on some heavier white in just a few places. So I start subtle, wider areas, get a little bit lighter, a little more area, and then some heavy white, just especially that thick, heavy bodied. I could just dab it in almost, I just love the look of the brush strokes. Play around with your brush. You could, you know, just don't get really choked up and tight and try to do a nice big cloud. Hold it way back, hold it loose, and just have fun with it. So I'm just putting some brighter whites in places, like any way you want. I can go crazy, like I said, and you have to learn to stop, and I sometimes keep going. But I would just step back, like I say, and then I could tell where it is that I might want to add a little more. I want most of the yellow to be over here where the sun is behind the cloud, so maybe I'll soften those up a little bit. And I think I'll leave it like that. But can you see how I've gone back with just some brighter little white strokes? And if you're looking at it close, it just looks abstract almost. And so that's enough for the sky. And you can always come back later. There's nothing that says you can't come back later and add or subtract things. But what I would say is let it sit for a while before you go ahead and keep overworking it. Because sometimes, first of all, you might say, oh, this is awful. I don't like this at all. Put it aside, walk away from it, don't look at it till the next day. Take little glimpses of it. Automatically, it sort of comes together and looks amazing. But you're too critical sometimes when you're 6 inches away painting it. So do step away when you need to. Before you go ahead and paint something over, let it sit with it, live with it for a while, because more times than not, you probably don't need to. Hey, Katie. Hey, good to see you. How are you? Nice to see you guys all popping in and saying hello. It really helps when you even just send a little emoji. It just helps for my post to be seen by more people. And it's a simple thing. If you just say hello or even put an emoji, it really does help the visibility of my social media posts. Hey, Patty, thank you. This is a really fun, easy, quick painting. You know, I wanted to go back and just darken up the horizon line, the water back there, because the water would be the darkest far back like that, and it would get a little lighter as you come forward. And because it was wet, I was just taking off that coat. So that's another thing with acrylics. It doesn't cover great sometimes. So you need to put multiple coats, but putting them on while the first coat is wet is all you're doing is pulling off the first one. So do have some patience, let it dry, or just use your heat gun or your hair dryer. And I'm just gonna go, and I just want to, in the back, just get it a little darker along the horizon line. Just a little bit darker back there. And I'll bring some of that dark color forward probably, here and there. But for now, I'm picking up some white. I really want to stay that pure blue and phthalo green. So if you missed it, I'm using Liquitex phthalo blue and green. The best combination I can find for a nice teal or an ocean color, especially that dark Atlantic water that we have here. And just by adding a little bit of green and white to it, you get that nice Caribbean water. So it's pretty versatile, and it makes great teals too. If you're, teals are a tough one to mix sometimes. I sort of overshot my horizon line there, but little mistakes are super easy to fix. What I would do is just take another brush with some water on it and just wipe that wet paint off. You could certainly just paint over it later if you didn't catch it, but mistakes are pretty easy to fix. Okay, Dallas. Okay, this Saturday. Yeah, I don't often come on the weekends, but it's kind of nice. I was just kind of hanging out, and I wanted to get like I said, I have a little group shop where I have some paintings and some other things, whatever I feel like creating at the moment. It's a nice little outlet to be able to sell. So another thing in the membership I should mention is if you are a teacher, you can use my designs on any of your in-person stuff, or you could use them for selling. If you have a little group shop or Christmas time, you could do, a little extra side business. I give you lots of ideas for, things that aren't too difficult or time-consuming to paint, and they'd be great for a little, selling a little bit, and then you could make money to go buy all the paint colors, right? So yeah, so you have the rights to use any of my designs for any in-person things, whether it's craft fairs or classes you want to teach your friends or teach for profit, whatever, you can certainly do that. Okay, so I've got darker in the back. I'm streaking in a little bit of light here and there, and I'm going to get a little bit of that color in between my nice lime green bits here, just in a few spots. Because I would be a little darker sometimes over where a wave might be breaking, right? So I could put a wave breaking there. And sometimes when I just go back and forth here with like a loose touch on my brush, it almost starts making the waves for me, and that's how I determine where they're going to be. So I've got that. I want to get a little brighter with the waves, so I do have a brush with white on it here. And sometimes when I'm doing simple little white caps, I'll just take I'm still using just these hog bristle brushes, and I'll just take a little bit of white just on the corner of the brush, not the whole brush, just the corner, usually pat some off. And if I have a nice loose grip on my brush and I want to make a wave, I could simply like start a little bit and just drag it across. When you're back a little further, it's going to be more like a little white cap. When you're up a little closer, I might start it, and then I press a little bit, and then I loosen up. So I'm almost start with a chisel edge, press it a little bit, chisel edge, keeping it kind of rough, and that's going to give me a little bit of a wave there too. And just from a distance, not from up close, but from a distance, it's looking like a wave turning over. And later on, when I give a little shadow underneath, and sometimes that lime green that you see through when the wave's turning. I just love the texture. So I'm going to go ahead now and do the same thing. I'm just going to take little bits of white on the corner of my brush. I sometimes pat it off, like I say, and sometimes maybe not if you want a big wave. So say I've got a wave here that's really breaking over. I'm going to start a little thinner. I'm going to press down more when I want to have that wave breaking, and then I'm going to thin it out, drag it out a little bit. And from a distance, it's already looking like a wave. I might just dry my brush off on my paper towel and soften this even more, or even push up with the brush like this, and it kind of gives you that spray look. It's the texture in the brushes. It does an awful lot for you. So I'm just going to make some little waves like that, and then I might come back with the heavy body white and just kind of make it a little thicker here and there. But I just want to get some waves. The closer to the shore, the bigger they could be. But back here, you could just rub your brush back and forth sometimes just to get some little lighter areas. And if you did it with the chisel edge, you could be back here still, but you could just get a little bit of a thinner area. Okay, I'm going to go a little heavier. Some places, I don't know if you can see that. So I'm going to do it like when it's turning over to the front. I have that more of a solid line. I might just break it up to make it look kind of like splashy up there. Again, with the old toothbrush spattering, you could get in kind of close and spatter just the white right where the wave is breaking, and that looks like the spray. So fun. I do love painting the ocean. How many of you guys like painting the ocean or the beach? And what might be your favorite thing to paint? I'm always curious to see what that is. Like I said, as they come up on the shore here, it might just be a little bit of that white, a little bit of the translucent water coming up. So I'm just going to drag some white over there. I might just kind of along here, just make more little, this wave's just breaking up here. I almost can put in some little random lines and then turn them into something too. I'll show you when I put some little shadows under where they're turning. Sometimes I'll do them with it might look like this and it's kind of coming over like this, and it's almost like the spray's coming that way. And it's kind of nice because that's mixing with the ocean color that's a little wet under there, but once it dries and I put a little bit stronger white again back in there, it's kind of cool. It's kind of nice when you do some of that when the paint is a little wet. It's very dry here, so maybe I'll just go in with some of that teal blue and then right on top with the white so it kind of blends in there for me instead of being dry and just dragging that on. And just do a little at a time, take a look, step back. And it's hard for me to even know what that looks like a little bit till I step back to it. Okay. That's a little bright, that line that I put in back there. I might just soften a little bit with just this white on my brush, a dirty brush with white, a little of the ocean color, and I might just soften that a little bit so it's not such a harsh line. I'll go a little heavier when that dries. And I might go to a little smaller brush because sometimes right under when the wave breaks, I want it a little darker. So I might use the Payne's Gray and some of the blue together. I'm not going to have it too heavy, but I could go just like under this wave, say, I think it's maybe best to let that dry a little bit, but you can see what I'm trying to achieve. I'm just trying to get a little darker underneath there. Shadow would be under here, under where things are breaking. Sometimes it's just a little bit. So a little tiny pinch of Payne's Gray with the blue there, just so it's a little darker than the blue by itself. So it's just a teeny touch of Payne's Gray and a little blue. But again, I don't go with a big brush load. I put a little bit on and kind of scooch it. Oh, hey, Jim. Yes, I am, although it's not been like summer much, right? How is everything with the bees and you? How has this weather been for your bees? I always wonder. And I know I can't wait to get to the beach. I really haven't gotten there yet because it's just been kind of chilly still. Yep, so just kind of finessing, just a few colors I have on the palette back and forth. Then I gotta step away because I do like to put, like I said, that lime green under there sometimes, but let me kind of look from a distance. It's kind of getting there. It's kind of some waves and whatnot. I will probably finesse more. I'm not going to keep you guys on here all day, but you get the idea. But now I think we could go in and maybe get a little bit of our sun reflection. Although I'm going to let it set for one more minute. And let's get back in here. So we have a pretty blah sand, but we have some darks and some lights. But because it's a little darker, now I can come in and really pop on some brighter colors and lighter colors and build it up. So it's almost like leaving some of your dark areas that you've done are your shadow areas, and then you can build up into your highlights, and it just works nicely. I always need to be a little darker to start because otherwise your lights don't show up. So, oh, they're doing great. Good, 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 good. All right, so I'm going back into, you know, we didn't really use a little bit of this. I took this out. It's called deep ochre, but it's also a yellow ochre or a couple of different paints that are similar. Maybe I'll get a little bit of that in here first. So like this is a little darker to start. Can you see how here almost how little paint I have because it's so little you can hear it scumbling when I'm scumbling that paint on. I'm going very light layer. And it's just enough to add another dimension straight on into the buttermilk color, and maybe I'll just do a little of that. But see, I'm leaving a lot of that dark showing. I don't want to cover the whole sand area now, and I want to leave a little shadow under where the water is coming up. So I may just a few crisscrossy strokes and a few highlight strokes here and there. Go one step lighter too with a little white on this brush in a minute. And if you go ahead and you lose all the dark you put in to begin with, you can always go back, dry off the brush with the light, put in some of the dark, and scooch it back in. You can go back and forth however you want. A little bit of the white now mixed with just what's on my brush, so it's not pure white. And I just here and there, I'm going to just hit it. And I may even go afterwards, I'll show you that little trick with the old toothbrush tube. Just spatter on some spray and some sand color on the beach here. I might get a little brown out, a little burnt sienna, so that we can spatter some of that. And let's see, where are you, burnt sienna? I don't see it, but I do. Okay, that's more like a red brown, which is pretty much the only brown I use most of the time. Hey Deb, how are things in Maine? Are you there? It's so rainy out. We're sort of hanging in Mass this weekend. So I will use this burnt sienna, and I'll mix a little black sometimes with it, and that gives me like more of a dark burnt umber. So sometimes when I want to consolidate and not have a million different paints, I will use just one certain color and just kind of mix it from there. So I'm going to use that for the spattering. I am going to get a little bit more white, but let's go and get our little reflection on the water. Reflections in the water, sometimes even if they show up, especially on a lake and it's not as choppy, and it shows up almost as a mirror image. But you don't want to paint it as a mirror image because it's a little confusing. I always go back and forth and streak a little color. And I start lighter and we can always go a little darker. So for our little sun reflection, I'm taking that yellow again, but I really want to lighten it up. Remember, that's pretty dark. And I'm going to just kind of go under where, this is where we're going to have the sun. I'm going to just go under there, and I'm going to streak a little bit back and forth. I see it's a little greenish because I do have a little bit of wet paint there. But I also want to add white anyway, so I'm just going to take some white on my brush now. I'd rather go super light and come back to it, but I'm just going to go with a little white there now. If anyone has any questions about the art membership, please just pop them in the comments. I'll come back to it. There's the link up top that just kind of explains more about it. I say I'm going to come on and talk about it, and then I end up just having fun painting. So that's going to sit a little bit because it is really mixing in with the watercolor, but it doesn't look so bad to start. It's a little bit of a start. Hey, Annette and Pamela, thank you guys for watching. We got a good group here for a Saturday evening. Is it evening? Oh, it is. It's 6:30. I didn't realize it was dinner time. Oh, well. See what happens when you paint? You skip your meals and all the things. Let me put a little bit heavier white. We don't have to do too much more because you get the idea there. I'm going to just pop in a little brighter yellow. And sometimes, so that's the dark water. I may even just go in and do a little bit heavier than I would want of the white. So when it dries, I could go over it with some yellow. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll finish this painting up too. I won't complete it now. It's pretty much done, but I will take a picture of it afterwards so that you can see it when I've done all the little tweaking. But I do want to go back in with my, let's get a little more of that heavy body white paint. And if I had, like I said, if I had my palette knife, I would kind of go to town with that for a little bit of textured paint on the sky. I probably would do a little more white, but I'm just going to go with some of that heavier white there and just dab it on some of the areas of the waves that I want to be a little brighter. And if something's coming and turning over, we can just make it look a little bit rougher with that. Right up onto the shore sometimes. And I do want to put some of those little really nice light lime green bits in. It's just little layers of this, light and dark. Again, sometimes with just the light blue is kind of nice. And so that lime green, I really like to use the phthalo green we had, just kind of like we mixed up over here, phthalo green a little bit, some of the primary yellow, and maybe a little white in there just to brighten it up. And sometimes it's pretty bright just right underneath, like say right here where a wave is breaking, you'll see that. Leave a little bit of the shadow there, but you can still get some of that lime green, kind of cool. The way it's just underneath those waves that are breaking sometimes. A little bit lighter maybe in some places. And sometimes I'm just using these little strokes. I like I said, see the brush strokes. I'm not trying to finesse it and blend it too much sometimes. That is is about it. I'm going to just give a little bit of white down here. Sometimes when it pools up down on the sand, you can kind of get these little circly kind of bits. Anyone here was in my summer camp this week? This is a 12 by 24 stretched canvas, and you can get these in packs at Michael's, which is kind of cool. I love this shape, and they have smaller ones too. But this one really makes a statement when you have it up. And you, like I said, have fun with it. Set it up on your easel, get a big brush, and just kind of play around and not worry about it being perfect. So my summer camp, we painted some really fun beachy paintings this week. We had a summer camp that was 4 paintings plus a little live tutorial. We did kids on the beach. We did some fun paintings. You'll see them on the page. You take a look. You can almost see some of that bike behind me here. And that is, we did live, but it's all recorded. So if anybody wants to jump in and paint some summer paintings and you kind of missed that, you will find lots of information about it on my page, or just simply put in the comments summer camp, and I'll send you the link, because that's $10, and that was for 5 recordings. Now we did it live, but 5 recordings, and that's a good way to jump in if you're new to me, to see how I paint and how I kind of my techniques and whatnot. And I think that's pretty good. So what I would maybe do now is with the old ready toothbrush and just a little thin down of my paint. I thin the paint down and then spatter it. It's great for doing stars and snow and all sorts of little textures. A lot of times if I'm painting a landscape, I might do this at the very bottom just for a little interest. I don't know why it works, but I'm just taking a little white on that toothbrush, and then I'm going to try to carefully just put it right in the spot I want it, because it does tend to travel. But for instance, right around that little wave, let's see if you can see it, right around that little wave, see the little spatters there? So I just am really aiming close to the white caps, the ones that are turning over. I'm thinning down that white paint, and I'm just going to spatter that in a few places. I just like the texture. Now it might travel it too high, and you could just wipe it off while it's wet, or you could almost put a piece of paper or something down. I just like the looseness of it. Here, let's see. I'm just going to go across and aim mostly like where the white bits are. And I may just come down on the sand and do it too, just because I'm going to do that with some of the brown. I don't want it to be as dark as that, so I think what I'll do is I'll just thin down some of the buttermilk we had and just take a little scooch of that, a little scooch of the burnt sienna, so it's very light, and it might not even be noticeable. It's really not, but I'm going to put it on there, and then I'm going to get a little darker. I'd rather go darker little by little. So let's see here, just kind of across the bottom. And that's still not showing up a lot, but again, it's subtle and it kind of is just bringing up the layers. But while I am here, I'm going to wet my little paper towel, because I don't want the spatter from the wave to be way back there. You'd never see them back there. They are just close to the wave. So before those dry, I just scoop those out. But I'm going to build up and get just a little browner, so maybe I could use a little heavier brown than I thought. Hey, you know what they had in town today? Well, the town I grew up in, which is a couple of towns away, it was so fun. It was called a yard sale. So instead of yard sales, they had the interactive map of all the locations, and it was all artists and craftspeople set up at their house. Of course, it's raining today, but they all had their little canopies up. How much fun. I saw such great artwork, some really cool pottery, all kinds of fun things. And I thought, that's a great idea. I'd never heard of that before, but that would be great to do in many towns if you've got a good artistic community. It was really a lot of fun. Yard sale. I'll hold this up so you can see it too. Okay, and I did drag a little bit of my brush there. And I would paint the edges of the canvas. Sometimes I just wrap the painting around as I'm painting. Sometimes I'll just paint it with the Payne's Gray. I know, Pam, it was so cool. I'm going to see about doing that maybe in a couple of other communities that I'm involved in. And you know, it was rainy, and I know some it wasn't as busy as it probably would be, but it's not like you had to set up your display at an event, I mean at a venue and travel. It was just in front of your house, and some people had covered porches. It was really fun. I'm going to leave this at this, but look closely and so you can see some of the little, can you see some of the little speckles there on the foreground? It's hard for me with my reflection to see, and a little bit on the painting. And you can see, I might go in, because see that wave with the lime green underneath it? It's a little bit of a technique, but it really does work. And so anyway, that was pretty quick. We haven't been painting that long. So I want you to be able to jump in and paint, even if you don't want to be sitting there for hours anyways. Just take a little time. I really want to get a little bit of my yellow in my water there. So I'm going to work on that. But anyways, it's Saturday night, and I don't want to take up your whole night of just watching paint dry, right? Oh, hey, Diane, how are you? I'm home this week, and I'll see you next week. Yeah, always a replay, always a recording, and lots of times I'll take this and put it up on YouTube too. And there are a lot of free classes over there in my YouTube channel. So Tinker's Cart Art on YouTube. I would love it if you would go over there. And I'm also on Pinterest. I'm on all those places. So look me up. And like I said, I'd love to have you join me in the membership. Like I said, it's $24 a month. It's pretty reasonable. You can just start it and see if you like it. You don't have to commit to a year or any amount of time. Just jump in and paint with me. It would be wonderful. And it's just this week. It's a little hard. I've mostly kept my membership open, but it's a little hard to have people joining at all the times. I'd rather bring everybody on board this week and get everybody acclimated. So it is going to be this week until next Sunday, actually. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. I really love it that you pop in and paint with me so I don't have to paint by myself. And I'll paint with you soon. I'm going to try to jump on every day this week because you know, just for some visibility and let people know about the membership. So even if it's not something you're interested in, if you have a friend or know anyone that's interested in painting or getting started, even if you're an absolute beginner, that's what I'm here for. So, okay, see you. Thank you. Bye.